Hi everyone, this is Megan from Genesee Center. I am behind the camera today chatting with Amanda Chestnut and Rebecca Lomuto, two of our heirs in the Book Arts program here at the center. Thank you for joining us on your lunch hour today. We're going to start off with just quick introductions. Amanda, you want to start first as a current resident?
Sure. My name is Amanda Chestnut. I'm currently in residence at Printing and Book Arts here. I graduated a year ago from Visual Studies Workshop and earned my master's degree, Master of Fine Arts in Visual Studies. I make artist books primarily. Anything else?
No, I think that's good. Rebecca?
I'm Rebecca Lomuto. I am a former resident here, Printing and Book Arts, from 2014 to 15, and I currently teach here etching classes, sometimes bookbinding classes, as well as Amanda, teaching bookbinding. I work in printmaking, primarily etchings, and also in photography, using our facilities upstairs.
Great. So was this your first residency here, Amanda? Did you start out right out of school?
No, this is my third residency, actually. My first residency was at Visual Studies Workshop in the project space. I completed that while I was working on my thesis. That was a really great way for me to have a chance to expand my work and to look at it in a gallery setting before I actually committed it to a gallery setting for my thesis exhibition. My second residency was at the Center for Photography at Woodstock. I did that last summer, so summer 2015. It's a residency geared specifically for minorities who work in image making. It's a month-long residency. It was a really good experience to kind of have a chance to, after that whole thesis crush, have a chance to explore if I had anything else left to say. Because you do the thesis and you're like, I did all this work, and then you get it done and you're like, okay, what's next? So it was a really good chance for me to be like, okay, I still have things that are worth saying and things that are worth people listening to, so it was a really good experience. So this is actually my third residency, and it's been a really good kind of fallow time for me to ready my fields to learn letterpress and to practice bookmaking and to think about interdisciplinary arts, to practice teaching. So it's been a really good opportunity for me, not necessarily for any one specific project, but for me as an artist and a maker to kind of hone my practices.
And that's what brought you here to Genesee Center when you were looking for another residency?
Yeah.
In what other ways would you say that Genesee Center's residency program is unique compared to the other ones that you participated in?
It's, I think the two biggest differences are the length of time. This is a year-long residency, so it's a little bit more of a commitment. Because I'm a Rochester resident, it's not a big deal for me to commit to a whole year. And it's actually really nice to know that I have a working studio space for the whole year. It's one of the biggest perks of the residency. I think the other biggest difference, that's what you asked me, right? The biggest difference between this one and the other ones is the teaching component, which was something that I was really looking forward to, gaining some experience and developing a portfolio of student work and having some time in workshops and in a classroom setting, kind of teaching what I know and what I've learned so far about bookmaking and book arts.
Now, Rebecca, you are a former resident here and you are currently teaching as well. What made you want to do residency here at Genesee Center? What brought you back after your residency ended?
It's kind of a funny story. I didn't start in printing and book arts, being involved with the center. I actually was volunteering with the youth program upstairs in the community darkroom, and I think I ran into Mitch one day, and he was with another former resident at the time, and she said how great the program was. It's fairly free form. You work and direct yourself. I liked that a lot about it, but then also I feel like my residency here was kind of the start, getting acquainted with the arts community in all of Rochester. I know a lot of different pockets now here just from people's involvement with us and our involvement outside of the Genesee Center. And then further than that, teaching has been incredible. I didn't realize how much I wanted to teach until I started getting involved with these people who just come here. They're devoting their free time. They're not on any sort of degree program, that they're just running on pure curiosity.
Great. For both of you, what do you think, how did your residency here change your art practice? Like Amanda, you're saying you came here to learn more about, printing and book arts, having a stronger background in photography. Have either of you seen a way that your work has changed since you've been here?
I find myself often splitting up my free time between being downstairs in the print shop working on my etchings, and then the other half of my time I'm in the darkroom working on my photos. And it's kind of helped me and my thoughts become a little more fluid between the two mediums. They don't quite intersect yet. However, my photographs keep getting more and more print-like. Playing with emulsions and things like that kind of remind me of what I'm doing on the press.
Cool. Amanda?
For me, so far I'm about 6 months into the residency, and I hadn't seen a huge impact on a lot of the things I'm making. I've kind of one of my current projects is actually a needlepoint project. So I'm kind of embracing craft in general right now in my art. So I don't think it's had a huge impact on my personal work yet, but like I said, I'm learning more about letterpress, I'm learning more about printmaking, and I'm pretty convinced that those are tools that I'm going to use down the road. I've used letterpress in my work previously, so knowing more about the process, I think, is going to really help me be able to incorporate it into my work when I need to down the road.
Now, Rebecca, you had brought up kind of the art scene in Rochester and how you're really involved. From an outside perspective, if someone's watching this, from out of state, interested in coming to Rochester to do the residency at Genesee Center, what about the city is inviting the art scene particularly? Like, what would bring people here?
Well, if you frequent more than one First Friday, chances are somebody will recognize you, because Rochester is, while it's a city, it's such a small town, and it's so beautiful because everybody from the people who print in our shop, and we're printing with printers that, they're career artists, they're well known in town, and they're just so welcoming and supportive of your work, even though I feel like I am just developing myself as an artist. They still kind of welcome us in the same way, as if we're on the same level as them. And then when you venture out, going to galleries, going to the Hungerford, you strike up conversation, and people are so interested in what you do and how it relates to them and how it doesn't. It's been really hard for me to leave Rochester. This wasn't supposed to be a longer than a 1 year thing here.
So you're from out of the city, and you found yourself staying here. I'm in the same boat. Amanda, what about you? You're not from Rochester?
I'm not from Rochester. At this point in time, I've committed myself to living in Rochester, and I think one of the other big benefits of the size of Rochester's art community is there are many print and bookmakers, kind of like the old school print and bookmakers, some of the originals, that the books on printing or the books on printing or on bookmaking are written about them and their work, and they're always referenced in and they live in Rochester, and they've lived in Rochester for 30 or 40 or 50 years, and they teach in Rochester, and they are really accessible and really friendly. So when you go to those art openings and you start bumping into people, those are some of the people you bump into, and you get to know these incredible internationally known artists as, oh yeah, there's there's everybody, and you call them by their first name, and you walk up to them and give them one of these at the gallery, and there's really that sense of community. It isn't just, you know, everybody who's kind of starting out, because there are a lot of students in Rochester. There's all the teachers are in Rochester too, so you get that whole spectrum of experience, and it's really nice that that's so accessible here. And I've lived in other cities where those crowds don't really cross or mingle, and it definitely happens here.
I like that you brought up the idea of just community in general, especially how it relates, thinking about here at the center. We are a fairly large art center with these 3 different program areas and people coming and going throughout the building. I know I work up in the main office, and I like to just come down to the book art studio because there's always seems to be people in here working. What do you think of the workspace, like being able to come in, whether or not for the residency or just as an artist to use the space? What about that community dynamic here?
I started, when I very first moved to Rochester, this is one of the first places I came. You know, when you move to a new city, you join a new organization, and that's a really good way to get to know people. And this was right up the road from where I lived, and I took a tour. I was really excited because there was a darkroom, and I've started doing darkroom photography 20 years ago. And there was a ceramic studio, and I started throwing and doing wheelwork at about the same time. So I have all these years of experience, but both of those practices require space, so I didn't get to do them often. So I was really excited when I found this place, and I took a tour, and I actually signed up to be a member at the Pottery. So I'm kind of, I've been familiar for several years with how easy it is to go from space to space, and how you kind of get to know everybody from the different disciplines through going to openings or going to events or volunteering at like the Chili Cook-Off or at Spokes and Ink, or you know, any one of the number of things that we do that are regular programs that are hosted that are kind of like community-wide programs, or through classes, because people will sometimes go across the hall or go upstairs to take a class and try something new. So the kind of flexibility in going from one space to the other and from one discipline to the other is something that I've been aware of and appreciated for several years now.
Rebecca, whether or not you're up in photo or down here in book arts, I seem to see you in the building several times throughout the week. So what about you? What do you think of the community environment here?
I'm in love with it. This is more my home than where I'm living right now in the South Bench. I find myself here every single day that I'm off, regardless of what I'm doing. And for the most part, I kind of come in and just mingle with everybody and like catch up. I really love talking to people and figuring out what they're working on. And people love hearing feedback, which is so surprising to me, because it's like, you know, I'm all over the place or whatever, and people love to just sit and say, hey, you know, this is what I'm doing, this is the techniques I'm combining. And often, you know, my favorite is a linoleum block with some type printed on these guys. And I find it very inspiring. You know, these people are kind of crossing these lines. To me, letterpress seems a little too structured for my own practice, but then to see these other people who identify as printmakers and are more into the fine art side of printing, use that and incorporate it in their work, has kind of kept me moving and thinking.
So we're about 15 minutes in. I just want to take a moment to say that if you have any questions, if you're watching and have any questions, using the Periscope app, you can just text them in, and then I can ask Amanda or Rebecca. And if you're interested in the residency program or any of our classes, workshops here, our website is rochesterarts.org. So Rebecca, thinking about, you know, you're just talking about your kind of your art practice, what you're currently working on. What classes are you teaching this spring, and what projects are you working on here in the print studio?
Generally, my class schedule is pretty similar each session. have an etching class that I run, and this is a big feat for me, I think, and maybe for the studio as a whole. I came into my residency kind of hassling Mitch. I don't know how to do, I don't like to do letterpress. I don't know how to make it work for me. Can we bring etching into the studio? And, Mitch made it happen. He started bringing in presses, and then I said, I can get an acid bath. Non-toxic acid, we're using ferric chloride here, which is a big deal because a lot of Rochester is doing non-toxic, and they're etching polymer plates. They're not necessarily using metals, and so I'm focusing a lot of my work around that. I like to think of my more developed works being photographic, and so I'm constantly photographing, and I work in self-portraiture. So I'm constantly doing that, and then thinking about how I can print that. That's not necessarily in the darkroom on fiber-based paper. How can I evolve that and grow it from the form that I learned in school? And I think that printmaking lends to that, just in the way that copper plates, zinc plates react in the acid, how the grooves and kind of the tactility of the ink on paper, and trying to make them work together. It has been something else, because I am also finding that prints, they exist in this two-dimensional format, even though etchings, you're pushing your beautiful cottony paper into the grooves of a plate and kind of making this mark. Your ink is kind of sucked out of your plate in this very visceral way onto your page, and the embossment and everything else, and I'm trying to move along with that.
How does that work relate to your photographic work? I know you have some pieces upstairs in the Artists Within exhibition, the annual volunteer photography exhibition. So how does the work that you have in that show relate to this print work that you're doing down here in Book Arts?
Well, I think mostly just thinking of different substrates to be printing on. That show, I have 4 pieces in that show. 3 of them are printed on papyrus using liquid light emulsion, which is an emulsion that a photo light sensitive emulsion that you paint onto different surfaces. I chose papyrus for the wood look of it. I think that it relates in that I was manipulating the emulsion when I was printing it. So I painted it on, as usual, onto these sheets of papyrus, and then in the darkroom I soaked it so that the emulsion would lift off of the page, and then I started playing with it and moving it and kind of cinching it and creating different marks with it. I think that when you get into more experimental processes in etching, say your spit bite or your sugar lift, things of that sort, you do have more of a painterly hand, whereas a lot of your other techniques in etching are you're taking a needle and scraping into your plate or into a ground on your plate. And it's the things that move away from that very definite mark that interest me.
Amanda, what about you? You said you're working on a needlepoint project, just coming out of a photography residency, now you're in Book Arts. You teach bookbinding classes. What have you been working on in the last 6 months using the facilities here?
I'm teaching the bookbinding class right now. This summer, I think I'll teach probably like a box making for like a portfolio style box,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a sequencing class for image-based artists. For me, even though I've been making images for 20 years, I really haven't been photographing much at all in the last probably 2 years. Megan, knew Rick Hawk, who, for those of you who don't know, was a mentor of both of ours who recently passed away, and he always used to ask us, why photography? and
Right.
why photos.
Yeah.
And when he became ill, I really kind of stopped taking photographs. And I don't know if there's a direct correlation between those two events, but it's been really important to me lately to think about the image outside of the photograph, to think about using images that already exist, to think about what makes an image other than that kind of traditional, either film-based or the gelatin silver-based or whatever, those more traditional image-making processes. How can the image be used beyond that? How can the image be made beyond that? What context should the image be placed in other than that bathtub ring around the gallery? So those are things that I've been really focusing on in my work a lot in the last 2 years or so. So that's really continued in my work here at the center, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why I'm so interested in teaching a course in sequencing. Even though this is a printing and book studio, and sequencing might, for some people, be better oriented towards a photographic course, I'm not entirely sure that sequencing needs to be limited to images that you make yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I work a lot from archival images. I work a lot from using a whole image and breaking it up and examining the language within each photograph. So for me, photographs, I often wind up translating them into books, because that kind of poetry of looking over one image and following your glance and seeing which part of the picture means what, and if you put it in this order, what does it mean, versus if you put it in this order, what does it mean, even though it's a whole image, and what does it mean when you break it up, separate from what does it mean as a whole image, and all of those things are really, really important to me in my practice. So I think doing something like teaching a sequencing course is going to be really, really a really good way for me to kind of hone exercises and practices that I can use in my own work when applying sequencing to images in bookmaking in particular.
Rebecca, do you think, like, that with Amanda, what she said about, how you kind of by the teaching experience, it kind of influences your own work? Do you find that happens with the classes that you teach?
Well, currently I'm working on a side collaborative project, and I think it was kind of born from teaching etching classes specifically. And the project is called Print a Month. It's just trying to get artist friends that are everywhere to just produce one print per month. We catalog it on Tumblr, and then have kind of a mail-out program, a quarterly mail-out program. And I think it's very related to teaching classes, because it's so interesting seeing all of the different backgrounds come to the forefront of everybody's work. Often my students, they're not artists, or they're artists, or they're past artists. They have this different relationship with art than what I have, and they make many different works. Some people are very technical, and they pick my brain for every single possibility a plate has. There are some people who are here just to kind of get that feedback from fellow artists, and then there are other people who just want another skill, and they want to figure out how that makes sense to them. And to me, I find that incredibly inspiring, and it just reaffirms everything that I know that has become second nature to me, that I'm doing in my own studio practice on my own without thinking twice about it. People really bring that to light, and I love that.
Lake Ontario Press just said, nice job, keep it up, keep printing. How many people are in that group right now, that Tumblr group? How many would you say participate in submitting to that?
The group itself is an oscillating 20 people. Some people don't necessarily have a print every month, and I have to consider that not everybody has the same access to facilities that I do, and I feel incredibly privileged. Being able to come here, I have 24-hour access. I have a lot of people to talk to, even when I'm not feeling right about a print. I can work through that, and I know a lot of the people that I have involved in this. They're all over the U.S. They're fresh out of school. They're printing in their bedrooms, and so my submissions usually each month are somewhere around 10 prints, which I'm satisfied with. I love having these images of what people are working on sent to me personally, and I just want to jump up in the air whenever I open up a new email. Look at what you guys are doing at home. Some people setting up silkscreen facilities in their basement, or my friend printing about 7 layers of linoleum blocks on her small desk in her room. It's exciting to me.
That's great. Online, we both of you are on like Twitter and Instagram. Rebecca, you talk about your Tumblr group. Do you, that's another kind of sense of community. Are you really active on those? Do you see yourself as sharing your work? I know even just with other residents and other program areas here, like in ceramics, like people seem to not be always sharing what they're working on all the time, and then others, it's kind of like overwhelming.
I think I usually lean toward using Instagram to share my work. You get these snippets. It's a photographic medium. Instagram is so cool to use as a place to have your everyday photos of walking around on the street or whatever else, and I kind of take those images seriously. A lot of the people I follow are fellow photography majors from SUNY Purchase, and they're incredible with their iPhone. They know exactly what to do with it, and I find that to be awesome. And then also it's like kind of like live blogging, similar format to this, as I can be in the shop and I'm feeling inspired because it's a warm summer day and there's sunlight streaming through the window and everything is going right with my plate, and I'm I snap a picture and I'm like, hey, this is what I've been up to. I know I can't, I don't keep in touch with a lot of the people that are following me on Instagram, or there are people who I've maybe met briefly in the community or elsewhere that kind of reach out in that way as well. So I find that to be a good platform to share my work. Twitter, I'm so out of the loop on. and Tumblr is actually a really good source for looking at other people's work, or just like the circulating works that are out there that you know of, and the Matisse print that you forgot about but you loved, and whatever else. Internet is such a cool thing.
So, you mentioned looking at other people's work. Do you, even just locally at other art galleries or within the center and the different program areas, just walking around the building, like how do you just take inspiration from kind of experiencing these other mediums, working with these other artists?
Absolutely. I am constantly looking at work, and artists that I'm following changes on a regular basis. Currently, I think I'm more into local arts just because all of my friends are doing cool things, and they all have different mediums that I don't quite understand, or I want to know more about. So I'm often looking at how they're dealing with that, and then thinking about it on my own terms, whether it's imagery related or just technique. I do a lot of that. I've also recently joined a forming group. It's a feminist art coalition with a group of very fantastic women artists. This is a little bit under wraps. I don't know how much I can delve into, but we're working on strengthening the community of female artists, kind of trying to relate our work to one another. There's sculptors, performance artists, jewelry artists, things like that, all in the mix, you know, and related to my work as a printmaker, as a photographer. And I think things like that, those like little pockets in our community are really important. And I don't know, I think that that is a good way also to figure out how to look at things you wouldn't necessarily look at.
Yeah, definitely. Amanda, what about you? What do you think of, you know, as a current resident, working alongside the staff here, the other artists and residents in the other programs, the, you know, renters, the artists that are renting the space? What do you think about that kind of constant interaction?
I think it offers a really good opportunity for collaborative efforts, either in teaching or in work. I think it offers a larger opportunity for exhibition. I know that a lot of people who frequent here are also associated with gallery spaces around the city. So when they see what you're doing, whatever project it is you're working on, they can be like, hey, we've got this group show coming up in 2 months. Why don't you put this in the show? So there's not only opportunity to kind of expand your work, like how Reb was saying, but also to have your work be seen more. And because Rochester, even though it's a city, it does kind of have that small town vibe. You really do get to know, through being in an organization like this, you really do get to know, all right, well, this gallery over here shows lots of books and lots of ceramics, and this one over here does sound and light installations every once in a while, and this one over here does lots of photo-based stuff, but they're totally open to video work too. And kind of getting to know that whole community really allows you more opportunities to have your work seen, or to be like, you know what, if I partnered with this person before on this print project, maybe it would be great to partner with them on this video project. What could we do next that maybe incorporates motion and light instead of just the still image? So it offers you way more opportunities to collaborate and interact with a variety of artists across mediums.
Great. For those of you just joining us on the lunch hour, we're about halfway in. This is Amanda Chestnut and Rebecca Lomuto. We are interviewing them, kind of just chatting about their studio practice and their experiences here as artists and residents. Amanda, she's a current resident. She's kind of 6 months into her residency. We have Rebecca, who was a former resident within the last year, and she's back as an instructor and a studio artist, kind of hanging out and making her own work. Just want to remind everyone that if you have any questions, you can message them in and we can ask them live, or you can always email us or check out our website, rochesterarts.org. All right, so kind of want to segue now into this last half, talking about kind of larger projects that you're involved with here that are not necessarily personal projects, but kind of group projects in the studio. Can't really, the tray in front of you of type, we have the type case. Both of you are kind of currently working on this project, right? Restoring this really great collection that we just received. You guys want to talk about that a little bit?
We just received a large donation of how much type? Do you know?
A lot of type.
A lot of type.
It's like 125 drawers.
Yeah. It's a lot of type. And it's beautiful and fantastic, but it's kind of grubby. Some of it's been used very heavily, some of it hasn't been used in a very long time. So as a whole, a lot of the residents and the studio artists and a few past residents as well are kind of joining together to get through cleaning all of the type and conditioning all of it so we can continue to use it for a long time. I'm with the other 2 current residents getting ready to start a project that also involves cataloging the wood type, so we can have a complete catalog of every piece of wood type, every type of wood type that's available here, that was previously available and that's in the new collection. And hopefully we'll also have that catalog be searchable. So that's a long-term project that we're kind of working towards completing by the end of the year. We have some folks who are very experienced in type who are helping us identify all the type, identify its origins, name it all, size it all, and then we're gonna proof it and photograph it and compile it into a giant catalog. So that's what we're working on with the wood type for the most part.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm excited to see it all. Rebecca, even though you say you're not that excited about letterpress, is there, having seen any of this new type coming in, are you at all intrigued to test any of it out?
Gosh, when we first got in all of the cases of type, we had a mass of drawers of all of this wood type, and I kind of went through everything very excitedly. Even though I don't necessarily know what this means to me at all, looking at artists like Jerry McCormick, using type as imagery rather than to build words is really intriguing, kind of collaging with these blocks and things of that sort. I find that a lot of this type is kind of larger format than some of our metal type that we have, and just the shape of it in general,
Look, I've been staring at this
Yeah.
ampersand. Look at this ampersand. I need to show you. Look at this. It's absolutely beautiful. What a beautiful shape that is.
That is beautiful.
So there's just so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It does get something stirring, I think. What that means, and will that mean anything in the future for my work? Probably not, but I will be playing with it regardless.
Yeah.
Plays an important part of work,
Yeah.
just because it's not what you're working on for your capital A art doesn't mean that it's not worth visiting.
Mm-hmm.
I made Christmas cards this season, and it was a giant letterpress project, and it was really fun. And will I ever put one on a gallery wall? Absolutely not. But did I make some beautiful prints to give to my family who wound up really appreciating them? Yeah. So I think that there's a lot that can be made from these things that aren't necessarily art, but are a creative endeavor that's important in practicing and getting to know yourself as an artist and what you're capable of within your own work.
Also, one of my students from the session that just ended last week, my etching class, was working on making plates that could incorporate type as tonality to fill in. Specifically, she was using an ampersand to kind of complement the shape of a human form on her plate, and things like that. That's the kind of ideas that keep my gears kind of turning and thinking and wondering. And I would love to see that cross of medium of matrices coming together in prints.
Speaking of prints, have to point out that this summer is going to be really busy. June 4th, we're hosting the second annual Upstate New York Goose. So we'll bring in print enthusiasts from all across, the Northeast region here to Rochester. And then also that same day we have our annual Spokes and Ink Bike and Poster Fest. So we'll have, live music and prints for sale by local artists. Thinking about all these events coming up and what you've experienced here as residents, what Just Terrific just had been counting down the days to Goose, as we all are. What, as residents here, what is that like to be a part of these larger events for the center?
It is so cool. All seriousness aside, it is. I fangirl thinking about this. We get to put on this celebration of print, and last year Goose was down at Wells, and I went down with the other former resident, Rachel Oatridge, And, it's just a collection of printers, bookbinders, everything from around this area, and you realize all of these people know each other. My book arts professor down at Purchase knows one of our studio artists here, who knows somebody that I met in Chicago who knows, and this network is so strong. The book arts community is a living, breathing thing, and I didn't realize it until I was a part of it. And events like that kind of reiterate that, and it just makes it so exciting. It's my favorite kind of party, essentially.
Amanda, what about you?
It's for me, I volunteered on the development committee here for several years before I was a resident, so I kind of have a behind the scenes look at what goes into actually planning these events and getting them up off the ground and getting the musicians there and getting the food there and all that stuff. So I have that perspective of having been on the administrative end of it and on having approached it as an artist. So it's really cool. It's like Reb said, it's kind of like all the best parts of camp, but for grown-ups. You get to see all those people that you don't get to see often and that you have a lot in common with as a maker, and you get to geek out about your work, and nobody cares how much you geek out because everybody wants to hear it. Everybody cares about what you're doing. They really, truly, genuinely want to know. And you've run into people whose stuff you want to know about. So it's a really good way to kind of be surrounded and immersed in this community that really cares, that it really truly is interested in the same things you're interested in, and having that kind of little bubble, even if it's just for a couple of days, is a really good way to culture and cultivate your own work and your own ideas.
Aside from these larger events that the center puts on every year, is there any other moments from your residency that you experienced here that kind of stuck with you, either impacted the way you work, maybe changed the way that you interact within the community? Anything that's going to, after leaving here, kind of stick in your mind as a really positive experience that you kind of take with you in your career?
For me, one of the biggest things that have stuck with me so far is how affirming this is in my practice. I'll make stuff forever. I'm always going to make stuff. I've made stuff for my whole life. I'll never stop making things. I have only been working as an artist for a few years though, and you get to a point where it's like time to shit or get off the pot. Am I going to be an artist, or am I just going to make things? And it's really been affirming for me to know that I can actually work as an artist, that I can be successful and have a successful art practice and receive encouragement from the community, and have, when people, I make a lot of artwork with my hair, which makes me easily identifiable as the artist. So when people come up to me who I don't know, or who I know because I know who they are, but I actually don't know them, when they come up to me and they're like, I saw your book, it was great, I can't wait to see more, that really, really means something. It's really important to me to receive that kind of encouragement, to know that what I have to say is something that people want to hear and they want to see it, and that it's worth continuing all the hard work. It's worth continuing to put in the effort and continuing to say what I say and to do what I do, instead of just making journals for profit and to sell for a few bucks a piece. Making those artist books really does mean something to people, and to hear that back, which I might not have gotten as much of an opportunity without this residency, is really motivating to keep working in my practice.
Yeah. Rebecca, do you agree? It's kind of similar
I mean, down the line,
experience?
absolutely. Um, finding the way that you interact with this thing, this art thing, the way that you're working on your own. I am almost 3 years out of school and out of my bachelor's program, and you get out of school and you feel very blind and directionless, and you're like, I'm just a kid, I don't know what I'm doing, and then you fall into a place like this, with all of these people to kind of lift you up, and it's not that they have to give anything but their support, and they're constantly telling you, you're onto something, keep this going, looking at your work and saying, this has changed so much in the past year, and things of that sort. And then even furthermore, getting excited by what you're doing, that makes it all seem like you're taking the right steps, whether or not you're advancing much further or it's the slow and steady pace. You still feel that progress happening.
So we have a little less than 15 minutes left of our little lunch chat here. Just want to remind you, if you do have any questions, you can message those in, and I can read them off to Rebecca and Amanda. In the last few minutes here, I just want to kind of ask overall, again, if anyone has any questions, and then Amanda and Rebecca, what if anyone's watching? If people are watching this, they're interested in the program, they want to apply, what kind of advice would you give them if they are looking to come to Genesee Center for this residency program?
Well, I think often a lot of residencies, you're kind of told to have this idea of a project of, what you want to be working on. And while that would have been helpful for me during my shaky start, where I was just kind of making plates for the sake of being active, I do think that the main thing you need to have is a sense of curiosity, because this is the place where you get to experiment and you can try whatever you want. So grab those ideas. It's great to be working on a body of work, have a project in mind or whatever, but I feel like that develops, it changes with people's style of organizing their work or whatever else, but this is your opportunity to be doing anything and everything that you want to be doing. And often I found myself a little bit lost, my hand in too many places. However, I think that I'm a stronger artist for being able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Did you find yourself, coming to the studio and working, enough? We just recently interviewed a few of our ceramics heirs, and they found that was the hardest part, is once you're out of school and you're not being told to go to class, you have to force yourself to kind of come in and work. But by the sounds of, your experience here, we can't get you to leave the building, so it's you're always in here working. So you find that kind of self-discipline,
Yeah, I mean, when you have a space that's so welcoming, I would find myself coming here during the winter, it's warmer in the building. So I'm going to come and hang out and sit on the couch and eat some pretzels or whatever. And then I'm going to look at the books that we have in our library, and I want to try this thing that I just saw. And, before you know it, it's 1 in the morning, and you're like, well, I should probably go home now. And things like that. And, I do understand with working a lot and, trying to support yourself, it does become difficult to try and get to the studio. But the thing is, the studio is always here for you. Mm-hmm. And after a while, you create this bond, and it becomes another day of work for you. And, I don't work Thursdays or Fridays. So Thursdays, I'm in the print shop doing whatever, and it might just be reorganizing or whatever. It's just about building routine.
Amanda, do you see yourself kind of falling into a routine here? Do you have a regular schedule of working?
The class structure really helps me, because I don't live in the same neighborhood anymore. I kind of have to make it a priority to get down here, because I do have space in my home that I use as a studio space. So I do wind up working from home a lot on my artwork. And that's compounded by the fact that for my primary source of income, I also work from home. So I'm very likely to spend the whole day either on my computer working or in my studio working for my house, but because classes are available to residents for just the materials fee, if there is one, I find myself, if I'm not teaching a class, signing up for a class. So I then have motivation, like every Monday night I'm here, or for class right now, every Thursday night I'm here. So I'll come in a couple hours early and clean my drawer, or put away some type, or work on a project for a little while, and then I'll teach. Or, you know, I'll stay late after class and get some work done. So having that accessibility to classes has really helped me build the routine of spending time here into my daily and weekly schedule.
Great. Any other advice for someone applying? You know, our residency program here is really, you know, not necessarily strictly for emerging artists, but we definitely work a lot with emerging artists in terms of, you know, getting that initial teaching experience and working in a studio possibly right out of school. Any other tidbits of advice before we sign off here for anyone applying?
Be open. Be ready to talk to as many people as possible. Things of that sort. The better you get to know the people involved in this place, the more likely it is you're able to draw whatever you need out of it. All of my relationships that I've formed here have been incredibly beneficial to me, kind of as an artist trying to network and things of that sort. I'm really learning how to figure people out and get involved and engage.
There are some residencies that are really kind of geared toward the individual worker and what you're doing and what you're going to do, and they offer a lot of solitary time for your practice and for your thoughts, and a lot of quiet time, and you could have this residency be like that. However, it's better to think of a residency like this one, especially as a time to network and community build and to work on building your career as an artist, and to work on building recognition of your art and your teaching capabilities and your place in the community, and kind of establishing all of those things. It's a really, really good outreach opportunity.
Great. Our application deadline for our residency program here at the center is coming up. It's April 15th. You still have a few weeks if you're interested to get those applications in. Again, more information about our residency program can be found at rochesterarts.org. We have a few minutes left if anyone has any questions, or we'll be signing off. I've really enjoyed chatting with Amanda and Rebecca today. This is our first Periscope live broadcast, so it was fun chatting with everyone. This will be live. We'll post a link on our Twitter account and on our website as well if you missed it. Just Terrific says, thanks for this. More, please. We will try. Carly, thank you, ladies. Thank you, Carly, for watching. So we're going to sign off then. Thanks, Amanda and Rebecca, and we'll try to do this again soon. Bye.